Behold, Kaeorok Castle, seat of King Tabor. This is where your journey begins. I fear that the king and his bannerlords have fallen to the shadow. Once noble and just, he has brought war upon his allies and ruin on his people. You and your champions must fight through his bannerlords, find him, and see if he has turned to Siroth.
11 generations of peace had reigned between the kingdom of Kaeorok and the realm of Aravia. A peace now shattered by King Tabor's brutal campaign of expansion into the neutral lands between the two kingdoms. Once revered as a pillar of justice, King Tabor had imposed crushing taxes to finance his war with his former ally, bringing desolation and ruin upon his own people. Had the king lost all reason? On the orders of the Arbiter, the company set out to persuade him to renounce his folly and wayward policies, even if it meant storming the very gates of Kaeorok Castle.
Kaeorok will not fall easily. Like all places in Teleria, there are multiple stages of defenders. You must defeat all stages to move forward with your journey. This is where you select your team and review the enemy champions before each battle. Each champion has unique skills and an affinity that makes them weak or strong against another affinity. Magic beats spirit, spirit beats force, force beats magic, and void is special. Void champions have no direct weaknesses against other affinities. You have only 2 champions. Let us pick your team. Well done. Notice that your leader has an aura skill. These provide special bonuses to all allied champions in a battle. The arrows above each enemy's head show how your champion's affinity matches up against theirs. An affinity advantage means a more effective attack, more damage, and a higher chance to crit. Excellent. Campaign medals drop artifacts, and here's your first. Artifacts are powerful items that boost your champion's stats. Along with special items, your champions will earn XP after every battle. Earn enough and they'll level up, growing in strength and power. Go to your champion collection and equip that artifact. This is where you can view all champions under your control. Each champion can equip up to 6 artifacts. Select the artifact and equip your champion. See that? Your artifact has already strengthened this champion. Better yet, artifacts can be equipped in sets to provide special bonuses and effects. I believe you're ready. Return to Kaeorok Castle, seat of King Tabor of Kaeorok. Fight through his bannerlords and find him. I must know if he has succumbed to the shadow. Congratulations, you leveled up. Every time you level up, you'll get full energy, gems, and sometimes you'll even unlock new features. And here are your rewards from battle. With this artifact, you'll have enough to equip a full set. Let's go! Artifacts can be equipped. Special icons will show which artifact sets a champion is equipped with. Tap on the set icon to read more about which bonuses it gives to your champions. This set boosts your champion's HP by 50. Excellent work. When you upgrade artifacts to certain levels, they gain new substats, giving your champions an even bigger boost. You have learned well. Keep strengthening your warriors. I shall return in time to teach you more.
Having overcome the castle guard, the company leader called to mind how the Banner Lords had cried out their allegiance to their king, but also to Seroth. Was the king's warring folly prompted by the will of the Lord of Darkness? Upon interrogation, a fallen knight confessed that the king had not been seen at the castle for many a month. His orders were being relayed by messenger from his encampment on the eastern front. This meant only one thing: the company would have to pass through the war-torn city of Arnoc. The once glorious city of Arnoc had fallen into ruin, famine, and great sorrow. Peopled by desperate refugees, it had become an unclean place made darker by unknown horrors spawned in the encroaching shadow. To go through it safely would take days, to go round it much longer, so the company agreed to pass beneath it. They would venture into the foul city sewers, albeit risking the known danger of intruding on the territory of the lizard men. After dispatching the lizard men tainted by the shadow, the company waylaid a messenger bearing a missive from the king. They demanded that he direct them to the royal encampment. Trembling for his life, the emissary pleaded that he knew nothing of such a... He had only ever received the sealed messages from a hooded knight at the catacombs of the Temple of Narbuk. Emerging from the sewers, the company set their compass northeastward and began a long and arduous... At last, they arrived at Narbuk, where the temple was now consecrated to the cult of Suroth. Guided by their torches, they entered the catacombs, where the wind howled with the anguished screams of the listless dead. As they sank deeper into the vaulted galleries, a voice on the wind became ever more distinct, now echoing words of protest, now prayers to Lamea, the god... The company crashed into a chamber to find King Teba strapped to a chair, his captors forcing a brew down his throat. They made short work of the aggressors, then cut the king from his binds. "I have been bewitched," he began in rasping breaths. Then, handing them his royal signet, he said, "Ask Queen Eva forgiveness for my forced betrayal. Thank her for giving refuge to my people, and request her help to find the cause of this shadow."